Welcome back to For the Record. Today is my birthday. I've been on this planet for 20 years today, and to celebrate my 2 decades, I thought I would share my favorite albums from each year I've been alive. But there is a small catch. I can only use an artist once. Also, I will mention, nostalgia will definitely play a role in a lot of the earlier entries. Like 2000, I say like 2005 to like 2012 maybe will be just nostalgia based. With that being said, let's talk about the first year of my life, 2005.
Count of three, everybody run back to your fantasy. Now, go.
In all honesty, I don't remember 2005 because I was a baby. I was literally 0 years old. I have gone back and listened to many projects from many different artists, and an artist that always stands out to me is Common. Although my favorite Common album is Like Water for Chocolate, which came out 5 years too early to make it onto my list. So I chose B as my 2005 album. I don't really have a reason other than I couldn't really think of any other project that came out. And I do really enjoy Common's music, so that's my pick for 2005. I will not be the first, and I better not be the last, to recognize Jay Dilla for his impact not only in hip-hop music, but in the music industry as a whole. I recently read the book Dilla Time. Actually, it probably wasn't recently, it was probably about 2.5 years ago. So anytime I say recently, I mean between now and 2.5 years ago. I read the book Dilla Time, which detailed not only his life as James Yancey, but his musical career as Jay Dilla. It's a very interesting read. It's really, really good. I learned so much about Detroit hip hop. Like, he was from Michigan, or he was based out of Michigan, and I learned a lot about it because I knew a lot about East and West Coast, and I learned a lot about Michigan. Really highly recommend that book if you want some more insight into one of the most influential figures in music history. It's really good. I mean, I could do an entire video just on donuts. I could do an entire video just on Jay Dilla's influence. I mean, he invented his own time signature. If that's not influential, I don't know what is. We're discussing a pretty influential album with this. This is Bon Iver's For Emma Forever Ago. This album kind of opened the door for the wave of indie folk that swept the nations in the 2010s. And I think this album made artists realize two things. One, you don't need much to make a good album. Bon Iver made this entire album in a cabin in Wisconsin with a mic, a laptop, and a guitar. And that was pretty much all that he had, and he made this album. And two, it's okay to tap into that vulnerable side and let those emotions loose. You know? Feeling your feelings is a good thing. Even though it's not a super catchy pop song, people will still gravitate towards it because it's relatable. In this album, he talks about breakups. He talks about sickness. He just talks about how hard life is. And life is hard for a lot of people. And there are so many things in life that happen to us individually that make us feel so alone, when in reality, there are so many other people who've experienced the exact same experiences and felt the exact same feelings that you have felt. And it's albums like this that make people feel less alone because they know other people do feel this way and have experienced these things. And music is one of the only true universal languages. You have like music, math, and art. Not to mention, this album and Bon Iver influenced so many other people. Even two artists I'm going to talk about in my later years on this list, he's influenced them. So I felt like I had to talk about him a little bit in order to set up who I'm going to talk about later. The only reason this is my pick for 2008 is because You Somebody is on this album. And when I say this with my full chest. You Somebody is one of the best songs ever released. I don't think I've actually listened to this album as a full project, like all the way through. I know I've picked a few songs here and there, but I will say this again. You Somebody is one of the best songs ever made, and nobody will ever change my mind on that fact.
Tell me what you want to hear. Something that'll like
I do really love OneRepublic's first 4 albums, especially Native and Oh My My. Those are like the big 2 in my mind. But I already had albums set in stone for both 2014 and 2016, so I was kind of left with Waking Up as my 2009 pick, which is fine. This was a year I really struggled with choosing one album, or choosing an album at all. It's not like I had like a whole roster of like 10 albums that I had to pick from. I didn't have any. This was the final year that I had to choose an album for, and I just couldn't do it. So I felt like I was left with this, which is fine because I do enjoy some songs on it because it does have some pretty big hits like All the Right Moves, Secrets, which is one of their best songs, and Good Life. So I felt it was, it was fine that this had to be my 2009. I know I said I would find an album for every year, and believe me, I tried. Okay, I tried my hardest, but it was hard. It was very difficult. And for 2010, I couldn't find one. I had to make an exception, but you can't even be mad at me because it's my birthday. So live with it. If we look at the facts, the fact is Nostalgia Ultra was released on February 16th, 2011, but that's too early in the year to fully make an album. You see where I'm going with this? You're picking up what I'm putting down. Nostalgia Ultra would have been made throughout 2010. So therefore, for the purposes of today's list, it's a 2010 album. Because I had no other options, honestly. I don't even think this is Frank's best album because Blonde exists. And that's like one of the best albums ever made, probably. But this is my favorite. And actually, I've said this before. Blonde is a better album. Channel Orange has better songs. Nostalgia Ultra is my favorite of the three. I don't know. My brain works in mysterious ways. For Nostalgia Ultra, it does have my favorite Frank Ocean songs on it, like Songs for Women, Love Crimes, and There Will Be Tears. There Will Be Tears, I think, is my favorite Frank Ocean song. It's so good. And it also has some pretty big hitters like Novocaine, Swim Good, and American Wedding, which I'm gonna say is better than Hotel California by the Eagles. But also, if you didn't know, American Wedding samples Hotel California. Hotel California has always been so creepy to me. Oh, it just unsettles me, I guess. So, American Wedding is better, but because I don't like the Eagles song. Speaking of samples on this project, the final song, Nature Feels, samples Electric Feel by MGMT, and that is, I think, one of my favorite samples that I've ever heard. It's so good. Both songs are so good, so then combining two really good songs into one song makes an even better song, in my opinion. If you haven't heard this album recently, that would make sense, as it's not on streaming sites anymore due to a copyright issue with American Wedding. Another reason to not like the Eagles. But if you do want to give it a listen, you will have to illegally stream it on YouTube. But don't tell people I sent you, because it is illegal to repost things. But do as I say, not as I do, because you better believe I'll be listening to that. Oh yeah, I'll be turning that up on YouTube Music, posted by Brandon from 4 years ago or something. You know what I mean? But follow the law. Be safe, guys. Also, listen to Nostalgia Ultra if you really want to push the limits of the police. Listen. I know I said nostalgia would play a very big role in the earlier entries of this list. This is one that I was talking about. This is Ever After at Mariana's Trench, which was literally the album of my childhood. This was crucial in my childhood. Mariana's Trench was a crucial part of my growing up. This came out in 2011, right around the time where I had started school. I was in grade 1 and grade 11. So I was like making memories outside of my home, and I remember hearing music and thinking about it for the first time. And this album had some very big hits on Canadian radio. If you're a Canadian person who grew up in the 2010s, some of these songs I'm about to mention might ring some bells in your brain. Haven't Had Enough, Stutter, Fallout, Desperate Measures. Those are 4 of the biggest songs on Canadian radio in the 2010s. And they all came off one album. 4 hits from one album, that's crazy. It doesn't happen a lot where artists have more than 1 or 2 hits on an album. They had 4. 4 hits on one project. That's so many. This may be one of those instances where my perception of how big an artist is messed up because of Canadian content laws, which very quickly, Canadian content laws are laws set in place that a certain amount of all media broadcast in Canada has to be Canadian content. So this happens a lot where I think an artist is super, super huge, but they're only really big in Canada. But because I'm in Canada, I think they're just massive superstars, when in reality, they're just popular in Canada. I don't know. This may be one of those instances. I don't know. But even going back now and re-listening to Ever After, it still is in my top 10 albums of all time. This is one of the only albums that I listened to and liked in the year that it was released. Ever After was another example of one of those. A lot of the earlier entries I've gone back to and listened to as an adult, and then that's how I knew to pick them for this project. Like, I wasn't bumping Donuts back in 06 when it came out, you know what I mean? But this, Believe by Justin Bieber, you better believe me, this was my jam, okay? I had a poster up on my wall of this album, saw the movie in theaters. Oh my god. I had a case of Bieber fever, and I had it bad, okay? I love that guy when I was 7 or whatever. I haven't really followed him throughout the years. Like, oh, I did listen to Justice a few years ago, and that's, I think, my favorite album by him. Although, actually, his Christmas album, Under the Mistletoe, is the only album I listen to at Christmas. The only acceptable Christmas music, in my opinion, is that album. But that's besides the point. Believe does hold a special place in my heart because it was one of my favorite albums as a kid, and I felt like I had to talk about it. It does have some of his best songs. Boyfriend, dare I say, top 5 Bieber song. As Long As You Love Me is also on this. Beauty and a Beat, dare I say, top 3 Bieber song. That might be my favorite Bieber song, although the video is a bit controversial. Hey, maybe let's not have grown women dancing on a 17-year-old boy. That sounds a bit illegal. But the song's still good, and I'll still listen to it. I just won't watch the video. I do really appreciate Justin Bieber for his earlier years in music, and I do feel bad because he definitely went through a lot of bad things to get to that place. Not his fault, definitely not his fault, but I do feel for him in a lot of ways.
Chance, acid rapper, soccer, hacky sacker, cocky khaki jacket.
You want to know something crazy? This was the first rap project I ever heard, and I thought, this is what real hip-hop sounds like. This is real music. The even crazier part is I could go verse for verse on every single song on this project. It just engraved in my brain. Also, I could go word for word in Peach Scone by Hobo Johnson. So there's also that. Also real music, you know what I mean? If we're being real for a second, this is probably Chance's best piece of music. I could see the argument for Coloring Book, but I like acid rap a little bit more. Now let's talk about some real rap music. Not that Chance isn't a rapper, it's literally in his name. But between Chance the Rapper and Schoolboy Q, only one of them made the big day, so you make that decision. I don't actually know if this is my favorite Schoolboy Q project, because I do like Blue Lips a lot. I listen to it more than Oxymoron, but Oxymoron does have his biggest hits, which would be Man of the Year. Collard Greens with Kendrick is on this. I think Studio even is on this with BJ the Chicago Kid. Something that often happens with really popular songs like Collard Greens is I'll hear it all the time and then I'll get sick of it. I remember hearing Collard Greens in 2014, but then when I went back and re-listened to it for the first time, probably about 2 years ago, I didn't get that overwhelming feeling of, oh my god, I need to turn it off. I'm sick of this song. It's overplayed. I never got that feeling with that song. Schoolboy Q is someone who I always come back to and I've never gotten sick of. And I think over the last year and a half-ish since we've gotten Blue Lips, I've realized it's his pacing. His pacing is what keeps me coming back because it's just fast enough to keep me interested, but just slow enough that I can still follow along with him. Schoolboy Q is on my Mount Rushmore of rappers, just my personal favorites. It would be Schoolboy Q, J.I.D., Vince Staples, and Pusha T. If anyone wanted to know, that's my Mount Rushmore of rappers. I don't think this is The Weeknd's best album because we live in a world where After Hours exists, and that's one of the best albums ever made. But I do think Beauty Behind the Madness is just as important as After Hours because this is the one that catapulted The Weeknd into the spotlight. I remember the first time I saw the Can't Feel My Face music video. It was on this channel called Juicebox, which I don't know if anyone remembers that. It's kind of like MTV, but for my generation, because I feel like I was a little bit too young for MTV, but Juicebox I watched all the time. I loved a good music video. I still do to this day. But I remember sitting there in my living room, and I saw this video, and I thought to myself, oh my god, I love this fiery man, because he's literally on fire in the video. I just thought, I'm never going to stop listening to this artist. And look at me 10 years later, still talking about this album and that song and that video. The 10th song on this project is called In the Night, which in my humblest of opinions, is one of his best storytelling songs. I feel like people don't talk about it enough. I mean, even the entire last trilogy for The Weeknd, After Hours on FM and Hurry Up Tomorrow, they're all very story based. But I think going back and listening to individual songs, like In the Night, he is just a very good storyteller in general.
Remember when I couldn't even see the point of stepping out the motherfucking house? Let it go, let it go, let it
I think the genius of Anderson .Paak needs to be studied sometime, somewhere, sometime soon. And maybe I'll even be the one to study his genius at some point. He might be one of the coolest people to ever plant his feet upon the ground on this planet. And you know what? I'm absolutely fine in saying that because he's so awesome. Not only is he just an influential musician, he's just like cool. And you know, from an outside person looking in, you may just think of Anderson .Paak as, oh, that funky DJ with the weird wigs. And fair enough. Fair enough. First impression, absolutely, that's how I saw him too. But then going back and listening to Malibu and Venice and Oxnard, I realized how awesome he is. Yes, he is still that funky DJ with his coconut head wig, but he's so much more than that. He's a producer, he's a drummer. His Tiny Desk concert is the best one ever because he's playing the drums and he's also singing along. I don't know a lot of people who can multitask that well, to be honest with you. I can't. I can't play the drums though, so that's, and I can't sing, so that's also anyway. But Malibu is the album for 2016. He fully produced this on a MacBook with a dented microphone, which is sick. It's kind of another Bon Iver situation where it was just, he just let his creative juices go, and we got Malibu from that, which has one of my favorite songs on it. It's called Celebrate. It's one of my favorite vibes for a song, because I don't really like those big bombastic sounding, very upbeat, energetic songs. That's not my thing, right? I need a calming song. Celebrate is that song for me because I can just picture myself driving through Los Angeles. Never been to Los Angeles, but I just picture myself in there with a convertible, just driving through the hills and looking at the ocean waves crash beside me. That's how I feel. And music is always a very visual thing for me. And this album specifically is very visual for me. Sam Smith was one of my all-time favorite artists, but little did I know this would be the last piece of good music we ever got from them. It sucks to say that, but it's kind of true. I'm someone who will always support Sam Smith, but that support has had its ups and downs, mostly downs in the last few years. But I don't think Sam makes bad music. I would never say that. I love Sam Smith too much to say that. And even their newest song, Love is a Stillness, we do kind of get that vibe of older music. We kind of got that back a little, which is good. 2017's The Thrill of It All was the first album I ever bought a physical copy of. I walked my little 12-year-old self down to the record store that we have in town, and I bought the CD. And I still have that CD to this day, and I don't think I'll ever get rid of it because it just holds such a memory for me. But saying I'm a Sam Smith fan in the big 2025, it feels weird because I feel like I'm saying I'm a fan of Unholy. I'm not. That song is far too performative for my liking. I feel like if it was a Lady Gaga song, it might have been better, but it wasn't. It was a Sam Smith song. I'm not saying I don't love Sam Smith anymore. I just don't love the artists that they've become, which is fine. Opinions change. People change. That's a normal part of life. I'm just glad that we still have access to In the Lonely Hour and The Thrill of It All, because they're genuinely very good pieces of music. And I don't even think nostalgia plays a part in this entry because I've gone back to it a few times over the last few years and I pick up more things that I love about it each time. Like the vocals, the lyrics, the instrumentation on this album. It's like borderline perfect. And I don't know, I wish we got more of that music, and I don't think we ever will get that kind of music from Sam again, which is disappointing, but it's fine. Life happens. Things change. It's okay. But we still have this to go back to. I know I've said this 13 other times, but that's the point of this video, is to talk about my favorite albums ever made. When I say this, you better believe me. Cold Heart by Third Story is one of the best albums ever released. I think what gets me from this album is the vocals. This band is, or was, made up of Elliot Skinner, Ben Lesher, and Richard Saunders. They did break up after this album came out, which it is disappointing because we'll never get an album as good as Cold Heart, but then again, it will never have that opportunity to be disappointed because it's not as good as Cold Heart. You know what I mean? Like, there's pros and cons to only having one album. But their voices blend together so perfectly. Also, bit of a side note, Pusha T is on a song called G Train on this project. And when I first heard that song, I was like, that's such a weird, like, collab for Pusha T to do. On this random band from New York that has one album, Pusha T is on this random song on it. It was weird. It is a really good feature though. Pusha T doesn't really let us down with his features. So, it is a good feature. I do like it. There are 11 songs on this project, and every single one has its standout parts. But for me, the songs that stand out as a whole would be Over When We Said Goodbye, Goodbye My Friend, and I'm Coming Around. Those are like the three that I go back to most often. I will warn you, this may be one of the saddest albums on this list, but it is 1000% worth the listen. You may be sad when you hear it, but you will not be disappointed. I will tell you that much. This is literally my album. This album was made specifically and only for me. Even from the first song, appropriately titled Intro, I was hooked. And what I'm going to say is going to be weird, and you might not understand what I mean, but somebody out there will get it. I've always said, if we could hear people's souls, mine would sound like Intro by Khalid. I don't know what that means, but it means something to me because that's just how I feel, To talk about the rest of the album, there's not really any low points, although there is a John Mayer feature on Out of My Head. This is coming from a John Mayer hater. That feature is too long and it's unnecessary. But also, I do find anything he does unnecessary because he's John Mayer. He doesn't sing, he just plays a guitar on this. But it's just too long. But Out of My Head is still a top tier song, Just, I'd like it a little bit better if there wasn't guitar for half of it. I'm going to leave it with this. There's no other single piece of music that has impacted my life as much as Free Spirit by Khalid. I don't know who I would be today if I hadn't heard it when I heard it.
Better than I was before, despite.
I just told you that my soul sounds like Free Spirit by Khalid, which is strange. I understand that. But what I'm about to say is on par with that. And Love Is Not Dying by Jeremy Zucker sounds like my heart. I must sound like an absolute insane person when I say things like this, but I don't know how else to get people to understand how I feel about music. Most people's heart sounds like, ba-bum, 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 regular. Mine hopefully sounds like that too, but metaphorically, my heart sounds like Jeremy Zucker's song Full Stop. I don't even know what I can say to make you understand my love for this album. I don't know. It's equivalent in a way to how I feel about Free Spirit. And I know I just said no other piece of music has made me feel that way ever before. But I feel the same amount of love in a different way. Like, the amount of love I feel in my soul for Khalid is the amount of love I feel in my heart for Jeremy Zucker. And that's the amount of love I feel in my brain for Sam Fender. Oh my god, I sound like I'm actually going crazy right now. I hope someone out there understands what I'm trying to say. Like, I feel the same amount of love for all of those artists, just in different ways. I'll stop talking nonsense for right now. Love Is Not Dying has my 3 favorite Jeremy Zucker songs on it, which would be Somebody Loves You, Full Stop, as I mentioned, and Always I'll Care, which is a song, in a way, like Intro, kind of, where I just feel like it represents me in some way. I don't know how, but I always go back to Always I'll Care, no matter what. We also have another quick little entry for 2020, which is Cape Elizabeth by Noah Kahan. I felt wrong having a list and not having Noah Kahan on it because he is one of my favorite artists of all time. This was kind of my introduction to him. The first song I heard by Noah was Sink. So I knew Noah before he was cool. I can say that because I literally did. Noah Kahan was also on a song called Tough by Quit 92 from his album From Michigan with Love. Noah released Cape Elizabeth, which is one of, if not my favorite EPs ever released. It's tied for another one I'm going to talk about really quickly in a second. This EP has 5 songs on it, and every single song is perfect. Although I will say, I don't like the middle part of Anyway. I always skip it. But with that being said, it is my least favorite song on my favorite EP. So it's still like a 7 out of 10 at the lowest. I just think Cape Elizabeth is a perfect collection of perfect songs.
Go out and dance like we used to dance.
We've all seen those street interviews of people going up to someone and be like, "What song are you listening to right now?" And then they answer. Or like, "What's your favorite song of all time?" And then they answer. I think someone were to come up and ask me something like that, like, "What's the best produced album of all time?" My immediate answer would be absolutely by Dijon, which is not even my favorite project by him. My favorite project of him is How Do You Feel About Getting Married, which is my other favorite EP of all time that has 6 songs on it, I think. And again, like Cape Elizabeth, every single song is perfect. But this isn't about How Do You Feel About Getting Married. There are not too many people out there doing what Dijon is doing. I mean, we did have Bon Iver before him, and we now have McGee after him. Although he, I think, did work on Absolutely with Dijon, and Dijon has worked with Bon Iver on his new project, which is cool. But this was more of just an excuse to talk about Dijon because I do go back to Absolutely quite often, and I do really like Dijon as an artist.
I've seen some better days before. Feeling like forever was a long time ago.
This is the album that really got me into hip hop music, and I know I said that was Chance the Rapper, but this is the album that really got me into real hip hop, like actual hip hop music. This is, of course, The Forever Story by JID. I've been a fan of JID since 2021 because I found him through Khalid's mixtape Scenic Drive, where he's on a song called All I Feel Is Rain, and I was like, oh, this is a pretty interesting artist. Let me go back and listen to his older stuff. And then a little while later, he put out Forever Story, which is, in my opinion, the best rap album of the 2020s. And I don't even know if we'll get another album that's this good because we're already halfway through the decade, and nothing has topped this so far. Although JID is an artist who gets better over time. DiCaprio 2 was better than The Never Story. Forever Story is better than DiCaprio 2. So maybe God Does Like Ugly, which he just announced comes out on August 8th of this year. Maybe that will be better than The Never Story. Although, hearing Work, the first single for that project, it didn't hit as hard as I wanted it to. It was like kind of like a light tap on the face, whereas like Surround Sound from Forever Story is like a big slap, you know what I mean? It didn't hit as hard as I thought it should have for a first single for an album after 3 years, you know? But I am so excited for that project because I do still love JID. I'm just excited to see where he goes next. Back to The Forever Story for a quick little second. It has some of the best storytelling that I've heard in a very long time. We have songs like Track Sandwich and Cody Blue 31. This whole album is really just full of some of the best storytelling in rap music, in modern rap music, I think. And it has my favorite JD song, which is Better Days, which features Jonta Austin, who is a freaky man, let me tell you. I didn't know who he was before I heard Better Days, so I was like, oh my god, like, this is such a good song. I'll go listen to his music. That man is a freak. If you listen to his music, you're freaky, let me tell you that. Better Days is my favorite JD song. I feel like it's very underrated. I don't hear a lot of people talking about how good it is. Another rule break for 2022. We have 2 albums. I was 100% ready to sit down and film this video, and as I was looking through my list of my albums, I realized I didn't have Quadeca on here, which was surprising because he is like my 4th favorite artist ever. And so I really quickly sat down and I wrote a little entry about his 2022 album, I Didn't Mean to Haunt You. Quadeca has had one of the biggest musical glow-ups, at least in recent times. He started as a FIFA-playing YouTube rapper who got famous from dissing KSI, rightfully so. Actually, I'll say this. I do enjoy KSI. I enjoy JJ, but there's such a big difference between JJ and KSI. I'm just going to say that. This isn't about KSI. If this was about KSI, we'd be talking about the thick of it. So, and that doesn't deserve to be on any of best of lists, you know what I mean? Anyway, I do find JJ entertaining, but KSI is annoying. I feel like Quadeca's kind of glow up started with For Me to You. I would say For Me to You is where we really got to hear that shift kind of starting, which, you know, It was probably like puberty or something, but he was changing as an artist because Even From Me to You is so different from Voice Memos. Like, just you can just hear it, right? With the last single of Voice Memos, so the first single of From Me to You, it's a very different vibe. And then we got Didn't Mean to Haunt You, and that's kind of where we saw this potential for a new version of Quadeca. We got Scrapyard, which was a mixtape. It was an album, I don't know, it was a mixtape of like songs that didn't fit on I Didn't Mean to Haunt You, and then songs that won't fit on his upcoming new album, Vanisher Horizon Scraper. I'm just very excited to see where Quadeca does go with Vanisher. Because, like JID, he's getting better over time. My favorite album of 2023 was, drumroll please, SOS by SZA. Because an album that was released in 2022 deserves to be the best album of 2023, right, Rolling Stone? The actual best album of 2023 was an album called U Street Anthology by an artist named Rum Gold. When I tell you this is one of the best albums ever made, I mean it. This is on par with Cold Heart by Third Story that I mentioned for 2018. I'm going to give you a little bit of a history lesson so you kind of understand this album a little bit more. U Street is located in Washington, D.C., and is known as the heart of Black culture in America, or Black Broadway. In the early 1920s to around the late 1940s, U Street was known for its vibrant culture, music, and entertainment, and was known for its sense of community not only by the people who lived on U Street, but for visitors as well. And also, fun fact, jazz legend Duke Ellington was born and raised here. This artist, Rum Gold, obviously was not born 100 years ago. I'd say they're probably born about 20 or 30, unless it's some kind of like enigma, and he's just 100 making some of the best music of the 2000s. This album is about growing up on U Street. It's just a collection of stories and perspectives from this artist and how they grew up on U Street. An anthology is a collection of like stories. U Street Anthology. Stories from U Street. There is a song on this album, it's called Death of the Author, which I'm thinking is about Edgar Allan Poe. It's a very similar story to Edgar Allan Poe's life, where he spent his whole life trying to become famous, and he was like, that was like his main goal, was becoming famous and living in that fame. And then he died and never got to see that fame because all the fame happened after he passed. Death of the Author is very similar to that story, although Edgar Allan Poe did marry his 13-year-old cousin, and Rum Gold does not have a song about that, so I don't know, maybe Edgar Allan Poe was the inspiration, but when I hear that song, I do think of Mr. Poe, you know? This is the one album on this list every single person needs to listen to at least once in their lifetime. But if you do listen to it with headphones on, because you'll pick up on so much. Some albums you don't need headphones to get the full experience. Headphones are a must for U Street Anthology. In this video, I've talked about all my favorite rappers. I touched on Pusha T very quickly. I've talked about Schoolboy Q and JID. And now it's time for the final favorite rapper of mine, Vince Staples. Vince Staples is the absolute king of making short, easy to listen to, borderline perfect albums. Not a single one of his projects is under an hour. Sure, Summertime 06 is 59 minutes, but technically that's still less than an hour, so my statement still stands. Dark Times is the newest addition to his catalog, and it might even be his strongest yet. I don't even think there is a low point on this project. Every time I listen to this album, I find a new favorite song. Like the first time I heard it, my favorite song was Etouffee. Second time, Black and Blue. Third time, Lil Homies. I could go on, but you get the point. Every single song is my favorite song. Somehow, I don't know how that makes sense, but it's true. My final album, my 20th year on this planet, my favorite artist, Sam Fender, put out People Watching. Now, do I think this is his best album? No. Is this my favorite album? No. I chose this for 2025 simply because it's the best album of the year. And I fear nothing will top it. I don't even fear that. I know nothing will top it. This was the first Sam Fender album release that I've been a fan for because I started listening to him right after 17 Going Under came out. Like, I think it was like a month after 17 Going Under came out. So I missed the first two album releases, but After 4 years, we finally got people watching, and it did not disappoint. It has some of my favorite Sam Fender songs on it to date. Arm's Length comes to mind first, which came out January 24th, and it is already my most streamed song of all time with 5,000 minutes. Safe to say I became a little bit obsessed, and that obsession has not stopped because I listen to it 10 times a day at the least. TV Dinner has one of the best builds I've heard in like a long time, and I've said this in the reaction I did to this album. I need to hear that in a movie as like the villain anthem because I think it would be so fitting. And then we have the final song, Remember My Name, which I can almost never bring myself to listen to because it's so heartbreaking, but it's written so well that sometimes I just had to push past my emotions and listen to it because it's so good. One song I keep going back to now is Nostalgia's Lie. I don't even know what brings me back to that song. I feel like this is going to be weird. I feel like my older self is looking at me now listening to this song. Does that make sense? Probably not, but that's how I feel about Nostalgia's Lie. It just speaks to me in a way I can't even describe at the moment, but maybe in the future I'll know how to articulate that better. But Sam Fender will always be one of those artists I come back to. And this album will be one I always come back to. I just know it. Those are my top 20 albums of my lifetime. It was kind of like 22 because we talked about a few EPs. With that being said, I'm gonna go eat some cake. I will see you in the next video. Go listen to U Street Anthology. That's like the big one that I need people to appreciate more because I feel like it's not talked about at all. I am the top listener of that album with I think 7,000 minutes or something like that. So if you need a new album to listen to and really appreciate, U Street Anthology with headphones on, it's just such an experience. Bye for now, guys. I will see you soon, hopefully, with a new video.